pronunciation.
Hello
Viewers, novel The Names of Jolly Joe, founder, writer, Syllabic Association, and a poet, novelist, writing coach. A writer in general. We are talking about the art of poetry, writing coach. 17th September 2020. We are talking about the art of poetry. The art of poetry. 17th September 2021. The art of poetry about is something. I don't take it serious. In that we talk about. We have many poets in the world. I don't take it serious for now. In that, and let me talk many about poets in the world as other for now. Any other form of literature. And let me talk about poetry. Poetry as any other form of literature. Any other form of literature. Let me say it poetry is essential as any other form of literature. Poetry is also, let me say it is essential, and poetry is a way of expressing. Poetry is also some of these emotions towards something and express yourself. Poetry is a way of expressing someone's emotions. Brief towards something. Express yourself. How do you concise, but it is with a lot of brief, carrying a lot of meanings. It is with hidden meanings. Concise, some of them are direct, with a lot of them are hidden, carrying a lot of meanings. Exactly, we go with hidden meanings. Poetry, some of them are direct, some of them are hidden. Good forms of literature as poetry. Poetry is one of, if you talk about good forms of literature, poetry is something. If you talk about poetry, warm. Poetry is something warm, sweet, warm, and what can I say? What can I talk about it? Warm, and as I've said, poetry is hard to understand. Poetry, life. Poetry is hard to understand. As I've said, for many readers, because of its meanings. It also has poetry is hard to understand. Types and rules. For many readers, it has types and rules as itself. It also has types and rules. The rules of has types and rules as itself. There are very many. Poetry, as we shall state them in our book, the rules of poetry. Soon they are very out. As we shall state them in our book, Art of Poetry. So soon be out. Poetry also brings out the creativity of someone. So its rules create poetry. Rhythm also brings out the creativity of someone and everything. Those it's some of the rules of poetry. The rhythm, you have to be creative. Creativity for the rhythm and everything. Those are some of the rules of poetry. You have to be creative. You have to follow the rhythm of poetry. They have talk about it later. The rhythm and creativity. Rules of poetry are so broad. They have, let me say, brief. The rules of poetry, but they are so brief, but hard to understand. My words are no, they are very hard to understand. Hard to understand. Brief. Let me say, hard to understand. Each person on planet Earth, as a poet, to understand, has the right to choose. Let me say. Each person on planet Earth, he or she as a poet to write, has the type of choose she's supposed to take. He's supposed to choose what he or she is supposed to write. Let me say in type of poetry she's supposed to take. He's supposed to take is down and make research. Let me say in Africa, because we don't take time. Our poetry is down. Make research. Why? Because we don't take time. You get. So we have to make research about poetry. Today we research for the art of poetry. I will briefly read the heart. We have to make research about poetry. Today we hear each country almost has the origin. I will briefly read the history about poetry. Poetry mostly each country almost has from England, Greek, and its history about poetry. But poetry mostly, we talk about poetry from England. Those are the types of Greek, the origin, Italy of poetry we talk mostly about. But each country, India, those are the types has its own origin. The origin of poetry. Even Africa has a continent, but each country has its India origin. Each country has its own origin. Poetry of the ancient years, even Africa, let me say in the 16th century, origin of poetry. Poetry was believed in the ancient years, let me say, to have been recited in songs, theaters. Was believed, let me say, hymns, to have been recited very many songs, works, theaters, hymns, the hymns you very many. Amazing grace, how sweet the hymns, that is poetry. You hear amazing grace, that is poetry, how sweet the these people used to, that is poetry, create it, created that is poetry. These people use in ancient world is best created, as I've said, it is basically created those hymns through poetry. Poetry in ancient world is best, as a poem, I've said, it is basically you compose, practiced in hymns, words, composition of words. As a poem you compose to and arrange them. They either bring up a meaning or not. And arrange them. Listen. They either bring up a meaning or not. Feel the poem. And it can be when you read them, fiction, listen to the fiction, feel it. They are made the poem. As it can be imaginative, fiction, and fiction. And in Africa, mostly with me I talk about as we talk about novels. In Africa, and in Africa, mostly with me I talk about. If you see this, you can contact us. We are making an anthology. Poetry is down. African anthology. Please, if you see this, you can. For only contact us. We are making an anthology. So poetry, African anthology. Let me say for only Africans. In many schools, as for now, they are particularly interested in poetry, whereby poetry in many schools, as for now, it was used to bring out the interested in the poetry, whereby poetry, in ancient years, how the was to go used to bring out the history, the art of war, and everything. The art of war. That through him, how the way used to go on. They used to publish the Shakespeare's, but through hymns, that through they used to publish them. They used to create the Shakespeare's. What can I say? To bring out, to express that rhythm they used to feel about the wars. What can I say? To bring out, to express their feelings, how they used to feel about the wars. Their religions, their religions. Think for them to recall their religions. As a great poem, as I said, poem moves to the rhythm. Recall them. So poetry is a rhythmic world. Poem, as I've said, poem moves with the rhythm. In the ancient of, let me say, is 800 to 675 BC. In the ancient of, let me say, 800 to poetry 675 was used BC. For them to easily remember what they poetry, as I said, was an expression. What they passed for them to easily remember, because it is brief but brings out meaning. And it is very hard to forget it. So they used to, it is very hard. Use the poem. It is brief but brings out meanings. So it is very hard to bring out that expression. Forget it. So they used to use the poems and poem bring out that expression. In Africa, it's mostly tradition and religion. Poem, in Africa, is mostly tradition, poetry in and Africa, religion, and other world religious. And other continents. Poetry mostly in Africa, tradition, other worlds, and other continents. The other sect of religion. It is mostly traditional. In Africa as a continent. Go to the other for us we used to bring out the hunting poetry, elegiac court poetry. In Africa as a continent, and these were for us we used to bring out the hunting Niger, River Niger poetry, the Volta River, developed from the some of the Niger, River Niger in Africa. The Volta River Valley. You can find them in the pyramid texts. Some of the earliest pyramid texts. What do you mean by pyramid texts? Pyramid texts. You can find them in the pyramid texts. They are in pyramid texts. We know where they are. Pyramid texts. A pyramid in Africa, very hard to understand. How we know where they are. Pyramids they were constructed. So when they say in pyramid texts, how they were built, texts that are very hard to understand. if you're not keen about
when they
them.
say in pyramid,
Then the African ancient poetry
texts
that are very hard to understand
in theaters.
if you're not keen about them. Our poetry is mostly
Then
in
the
theaters.
African ancient poetry
used to spread
around
around
the
the
colonial
colonial
rule
in
theaters.
when we practiced
Our
them,
poetry is
how
mostly in
they used
theaters.
to treat us.
They used to
How
spread
we
around
were
the
treated,
colonial rule.
how we were when we practiced
taken
them,
as
how
dogs.
they used to
And I'm
treat
not
us,
talking about
how
racism.
we were treated,
but
how we were.
the fact is
Taken
these
as
people used
dogs,
to express out
and
their
I'm not
feelings,
talking about
how they
racism.
used
I'm
to
not
torture
talking-
us,
but how we used
the
to
fact
face
is
injustice.
these people fought
express
out
their
their
poetry.
feelings, how they used to torture
Some
us.
of the Africans
how we used
fought
to
face
face
injustice.
These
That's
people
the
fought
reason as to
through
why we
poetry.
Africans
fight
some
through
of the Africans
songs,
fought
and
through
songs
poetry.
that
are
part of the
that
rhythmic
is the reason
world,
as to why
and
we
poetry
Africans
is the source of the
fight
rhythmic
through
world.
So
songs
that means all
and
songs are written
are
in
part of the
poetry form.
rhythmic world, and poetry is the source of the
South
rhythmic
African.
world.
So that means
Can narrate
all
it.
songs
They
are
used to
written
sing.
in poetry form.
The Zulu songs,
South
you listen to
Africans,
them,
East
can narrate
Africans,
it.
everywhere
They used to sing.
we just express
The Zulu
our
songs,
feelings
you listen
through
to them.
songs.
East
Whereby
Africans,
songs
everywhere.
are rhythmic words. We just
They are in
express
rhythmic world.
our feelings
Then
through songs.
we shall go to the types
Whereby
of poetry.
songs are rhythmic words. As I said, poetry has many
They are a
types.
rhythmic world. Then we shall go to
It
the
has
types
forms.
of poetry.
It has types. As I said, poetry has many types.
Let's first list them.
Has forms.
Poetry
It has types.
as other aspects.
Let's
Let's
first
list them.
Many types and forms.
Poetry
to talk about them.
as
We have
other
lyric
aspects.
poetry.
It has
We have
many
the sonnet,
types
narrative,
and
dramatic.
forms.
There are very many.
We talk about
We're going to talk about.
We have
them.
lyric
You will
poetry.
find more. We have this.
We are talking
sonnet,
about
narrative,
briefly talking
dramatic.
about it.
There are very many.
But you will
We're
find
going
more.
to talk about them. You will
in
find
our book,
more.
Art of Poetry.
We are talking about briefly
like to
talking
make
about
research
it.
on what you
But
write?
you'll find more. Or just writing
In our
because
book,
you know
Art of
poetry is an
Poetry.
expression.
Would you like
Would
to
you
make
like to
research
write
on
and
what
be
you
like
write?
other writers and so you
Or
know
just
just
writing
writing
our
because you
work?
know poetry is an expression? Would you like to write
Yes.
and be like
No,
other writers
I don't
and so
think
you're
so.
not earning from our work?
Now, the lyric poetry.
Let's first begin with the lyric
Yes.
poetry.
No, I don't think
Lyric
so.
poetry is something
Now,
short.
The lyric poetry.
Let's
short
first
poetry.
begin with the lyric poetry.
Non-narrative. We don't
Lyric
narrate
poetry is something
aloud.
short.
We don't elongate
Short poetry.
ourselves.
In
Non-narrative.
lyric
We don't
poetry.
narrate aloud.
We don't.
We don't
And
elongate ourselves.
in this
in
poetry, the single
lyric
speaker
poetry.
presents
A
don't.
state of mind.
And
I.
in this
Single
poetry, the
speaker.
single
I.
speaker presents
A state
talks
of
about
mind.
him or herself or someone
I.
else, but
Single
singular.
speaker. I.
So
Talks
the
about him or
examples
herself
of
or
the
someone else.
Now
but
we go to the examples of
singular.
lyric poetry. We have the elegy. So
Or
the
there,
examples
the
of
sonnet,
the now
and the
we go to the
dramatic
examples
monologue.
of lyric poetry.
Those
We
are
have
also
the
part
elegy.
of
Or
there,
the
poetry,
sonnet,
or
forms
the
of
dramatic
lyric
monologue.
monologue. Some of them group
Those are
it
also part
as
of
some books group them
lyric
as
poetry,
types of poetry,
forms
which is
of
fine.
lyric poetry.
Some of them group it as some
They
books
are under the
group
lyric poetry.
them as the types of poetry, which is
They
fine.
are
Under the lyric poetry. Now the elegy,
They are
when we
under
talk
the
about the
lyric
elegy,
poetry.
is a
They are
form
under
under the lyric poetry.
Let
Now
me
the
see.
elegy,
Lament. We
when we
lament
talk
for
about
the
the
day.
elegy,
We talk
is
about
a
the
form. Let me
that
see.
theme of
Lament.
We lament for the day.
Some
talk
of
about
us
death.
misunderstand
That
as
theme of death. We have the themes.
we shall talk about. Some
them,
of us
as you said
misunderstand
in our book Art
as
of Poetry. We have
and we
the
shall be
themes.
using
We
it
shall
for
talk
our
about
special
them,
classes.
as you said in
For
our
special
book Art
classes.
of Poetry.
You can
We
join
shall
us.
be using it
WhatsApp,
for
our special classes.
Facebook
For
Writers
special
Club
classes.
Association, Instagram.
You can join
Writers
us
Club
on
Assas,
WhatsApp.
Facebook
And
Writers
also
Club
Twitter
Association, Writers Club
Instagram Writers Club Assas, and
WhatsApp,
and
and
also
also
Twitter at 708440352. You can join us for those special classes. 708440352.
We shall be talking about them
Every you can join us
Saturday.
for those special classes.
We shall be talking about poetry. We
Shall be
talking
talking
about
about
them.
Every
Literature
Saturday.
world. If we are starting
Shall
with
be talking
poetry.
about poetry.
Now I'm giving out.
Shall be
brief
coaching about
summary. the
more
literature
more
world.
of the details.
We are starting with poetry later.
Now I'm giving out
and
brief
in our Saturdays we shall
summary,
be bringing out later
more of it, more of
you
the details
inboxing
will be
you
out.
the laters later
To get through
and
from
in
our
our
book
Saturdays
Art
we
of
shall be
Poetry.
bringing out later.
So to
you inboxing
become part
you
of
the
our
laters.
special class,
To get through
from
from
our
just
book Art
purchase
of
the
Poetry.
the book Art of Poetry.
So to become part
At
of our special
$9.
class, you will
$9.
just purchase the book Art of Poetry.
The elegy
At $9. It is also used for solemn meditation.
$9.
Often one questions of death.
It
It
is
is
almost
elegy
about death.
It is also used for solemn
Death.
meditation.
It is the
Often
elegy.
one
Short.
questions of death. It is almost about death.
Death. Death.
Oh, death. It is the elegy.
Short.
You took my beloved ones.
Death.
They disappeared
Oh,
from
death.
me. You took my
They are
beloved
gone.
ones.
They are in
They
space
disappeared
seeing
from
me.
me. But can't talk to them.
They are gone.
They used to be with
They are
me,
in space
beside
seeing
me,
but death.
but can't talk to
To
them.
them.
You know, they used to be.
That is
example.
with me, besides me.
That is an elegy.
Death.
Elegy.
Talk
I
them.
mean, you know, then an ode. That is
An ode.
example.
Long lyric.
That is an elegy.
Poem.
Elegy with a serious subject.
Then
Then an ode written
An
in
ode.
an elevated style.
Long lyric poem.
With a serious subject. That is an ode written in an elevated style. Then we go to the sonnet. Oh wow, sonnet. That is an ode. The sonnet. Originally,
Then we go to
it
the
was
sonnet. Love poem. Sonnet. I love
the
this
sonnet.
form.
Oh my
The
God.
sonnet.
Originally, it was
Here I
am shedding tears.
Love
of
poem.
joy. The sonnet. Oh my God. Just
beloved
thinking about you makes me. Here I am shedding
Swallow the
tears
saliva
of joy.
I
Was supposed to spit. Just thinking about
Can't
you
imagine
makes
even
me
seeing you.
swallow the saliva.
I
Looking
was
at you, my
supposed
heart
to
shines like stars. I can't imagine even seeing you.
That
Looking
is
at
the
you, my
sonnet.
heart shines
Originally,
like stars.
the lovers, what?
You know, this
That is the
sonnet
sonnet.
originated
Originally,
from Italy.
The lovers,
became very
what?
popular in
Well,
England.
you know,
And
this
sonnet
Renaissance.
originated from Italy. Sonnet and became
let me
very
say was
popular in
single
England.
stanza.
And the Renaissance.
Usually with 14 lines.
Sonnet.
Things
Things
are
are changing.
single
Stanza.
Again, we still have
Usually
these
with
rules.
14 lines. 14
Things
lines more
are
changing,
changing,
such as
but
Spencer's,
again, we still have
Shakespeare's, Drayton, used to
14
use
lines
the
more
sonnet,
poets
such as
so
Spencer's,
use the sonnet.
Shakespeare's,
in their
Drayton,
writings.
used to use the sonnet. They used to like
So
the sonnet
used to
so
use the
much,
sonnet
so
in
much.
their writings.
Earlier in
They used
earlier
to
on,
like
like
the
the
sonnet
17th
so
century,
much,
so
the sonnet
much.
changed.
Earlier,
Then
in
for other topics,
earlier
let
on,
me
the
say
17th century,
the
Sherry
sonnet
Sherry
changed.
talked about that war experience.
Then for other topics,
Owen, you
let
can
me
search
say
about Owen
the
was
art,
one of the poets.
like
Sherry
used to
Sherry
talk
talked about
the
that war experience.
Owen, you
Then
can search
Sherry,
about
the
Owen
art was one of the poets.
and
that
then
used to
religious
talk about the
experience.
war
Milton
experience.
Search for Milton.
And
Milton
then
was
Sherry,
very
the
good.
art. Sonnets
And
like
then
other
religious
poems.
experience.
They also
Milton
follow
can
themes.
Search for
Themes,
Milton.
please
Milton
do
was
not.
very good.
We shall talk about
Sonnets
themes
like
in
other
our special
poems.
classes.
They
and
also
in our
follow
book, Art of
themes.
Poetry. Themes, please do
Very
not.
organized book.
We shall talk about
The
themes
art of
in our
poetry.
special classes.
And
After
in
the
our
art of
book, Art of
poetry, we
Poetry.
shall also go to the art of
Very
novels.
organized book. The art of poetry. How to write
After the
novels.
art of poetry, we shall also go
But
to
before
the
we go
art
to
of
that,
novels.
from the art of poetry, how to write
How
novels.
do you write then?
But before
And
we go
then
to
like,
that, from the art of poetry,
You don't lose content. Many of us
How
are like
do you
writing
write then?
novels and lose content.
And then
we shall
like-
also talk about those.
then
You don't
the
lose
dramatic
content.
monologue.
Many of
as
us
we
are
are
like writing
dramatic
novels and
monologue.
lose content. We shall also
Who's
talk about
explicitly
those.
someone
Then
other than
the
the
dramatic
author makes a
monologue, as
speech.
we are
A silent
monologue.
auditor
Who's
audience.
explicitly someone other than the author makes a speech to
Let
a
me say when
silent auditor.
those people who play
or
Romeo
an
and
audience.
Juliet.
Let's say it is a poem. Let's say.
Let me say
It's
when
not, but let's say
those
it is a
people who
poem.
play Romeo and
And
Juliet.
oh,
Romeo.
let's say it is a poem.
How are
Let's
you,
say
my darling?
It is not, but let's say it is a poem.
I'm so, oh, Romeo.
Hope you find.
How are you, my darling?
You get that.
Let me say those people who
Hope
stand
you
on
find.
the stages are not the ones that wrote those poems mostly, but they come and let me say those people who stand on the stages are not the ones that wrote and those poems read it, but they come and narrate them out. That is the dramatic poetry. Those people can write something and really read it and like poetry. So then the occasion those people are very critical. This is written for occasion. That is also for weddings, poetry. Then the occasion poetry. This is written for occasions. Let me say weddings. So some of us parties we used to be in some going for a speech. We used to do that. So some of us we used to be in some used to do them good schools. Our speech days. We used to do that on our speech days. We used to talk about them in Uganda. We used to do them. So we never knew that it is poetry. Now go to another type. That is narrative poetry. Narrative poetry. So we never knew that it is poetry. Now go to another verse of a narrative poetry. Narrative poetry. It propels a verbal representation, a plot in verse of a sequence. You narrate something. This is long. It propels as you hear. You narrate something. You narrate something through. This is long. And like narrative. As you hear. You narrate something. Pass through a situation and like soon we shall be having poetry competitions. I've read about it. By January we shall have soon we shall be having the second poetry competition by January. Now have January 2022. The type might tell of love, story, heroes, heroines, the dead. As the type might tell of love, story, heroes, heroines, the dead. Narrative. As like we lost one of our richest people, BMK, and I'm like, I want to talk about BMK. Narrative. As like we lost about BMK. I narrate how good people was, and I'm like, I want to talk about our shares, Muzatas. I write a poem about BMK. I narrate how good one was about one of our shares, Muzatas, lost presidents. When we talk about, let me say now, one of our beloved President Barack Obama. Yes, let me say now. Then the subcategories of narrative, as lyric poetry, it also has the subcategories. Then the subcategories of narrative, as lyric poetry, it also has the subcategories. This is in most cases operate on a large scale, both in length and they are lengthy. And the topic in most cases operate on a large scale. They use both in length and they are lengthy, and the topic is lengthy. Then mock epics elevated style of language, style and supernatural beings, assumption, or then mock epics. It makes use of epic conversations like elevated deal with completely assumption or that the topic ways of great importance, significant deal with completely insignificant. So those are like ways. Now we have a ballad. So those are like ballad. Now is a song transmitted. A ballad, oral ballad, an important form of folk poetry. Ballad, which was a song transmitted uses in the 16th century. An important form of folk poetry. It is usually a four-line stanza alternating tetrameter and trimeter. It is usually a four-line stanza in our book alternating talking about this. I talk about trimeter and tetrameter. Every Saturday in our book we shall be talking about this video of poetry soon. Every Saturday, and we shall give you bringing out the videos. But you can contact us videos our social media platforms, purchase our book, and we shall give you Facebook Writers Club Association. You can contact us our social media platforms, Twitter at Writers Club, Facebook Writers Club Association, and you can Twitter at Writers, the email Writers Club Association, Instagram Writers Club 2314@gmail.com, WhatsApp you can 256 the email Writers Club Association 440-2314@gmail.com, WhatsApp now 256708. It is now descriptive and didactic. Now those are also from it is I've said it is now descriptive and didactic. Poetry is poetry specific. It teaches something. It is a type of something. This is that teaches you. Let me say poetry specific. It teaches something. Discipline, but you can
teach something.
You also have self-discipline.
This is teaches you, let me say,
patience,
what and what.
Self-discipline, but
everything.
you can.
We
You
also
also
have
have
prosodic and features. The discipline, what
poetry.
and what. We have the meter and rhythm. Now we
Now
come
the
to the prosodic and
core
features
of poetry.
We have the meter and rhythm. Now
we are talking
come
about
to
the
the
core of poetry.
core of poetry.
What is poetry?
Core of poetry. Now when we go to
now we are talking about the core of
poetry. Is the study of
what is poetry now
and verification.
now
of
when we go
rhythms.
to
Poetry is, as I said, is rhythmical in utterance, rhythmic elements, and verification of rhythms. Language such as poetry is, as I said, is rhythmical in utterance, rhythmic elements that I'm not shall all be talking about them. Consonant clusters, pauses, stress and non-stress. We shall all be talking about them. Saturday, join us. You see the numbers.
I repeat, Saturday.
Our social media
can join us
at the beginning of this video. You see the numbers. Our social media platform. Now this we have different rhythmical patterns, and they have different effects. We have different rhythmical patterns, and they have different effects. So
on poems,
and to those
they have different
who read,
listen,
and write poems. And to
but
those
we have no specific
who read,
listen,
and write poems. Anyhow, as long as they come.
But we have no specific use.
Now we go to the meter. It's arrangement of accents and syllables. As long as they come. Syllable. Now we go to the
any
meter.
kind of
arrangement of accents and syllables. Let me say when
syllable.
Twilight has some
any
syllables.
kind of utterance.
Something you utter out.
Let me say when you say
the word
twilight.
You utter out.
Twilight has some syllables. Twilight. Something you utter out.
The word,
the
syllables.
Twilight.
We have many.
You get
And
different
syllables for metrical patterns in poetry.
We have
essential meter, syllabic meter.
Different possibilities.
Now the essential meter, each line has the same number of stress,
essential
but varies
meter,
in the total number of meter. Now the essential meter, each line has the same number of stress, but varies in the total number of meter. Each line has the same number of syllables but different stresses. Then the syllabic meter, each line has the same number of syllables but different stresses. Oh my God. Essential syllabic meter. This is some of that is mostly used. Essential syllabic meter. Each line has the same number of stressed and unstressed syllables. That is mostly in a fixed order. This is the most common metrical system. Each line has the same number of stressed and unstressed syllables. Free verse, fixed irregular patterns. This is the most common metrical system. They are irregular. We don't have the same numbers. This is free verse, irregular patterns. Syllabic meter, as I said, is a fixed number. We don't have the same numbers. This is free. Get. Then syllabic meter, as I said, is a fixed number of syllables in each line. We shall also talk about the essential syllabic meter. Is the largest number of poems now. We shall also talk about the essential syllabic meter. Is the largest number of poems. Rhythm.
All languages use about it earlier. All languages.
Rhythm.
All languages use rhythms. They have a rhythm. All languages, how they flow,
the whole world.
And whenever someone misses the rhythm, you have a rhythm of the language. How they flow.
Also.
And whenever someone misses a series of alternation, let me say the language.
Build up and release movement in counter movement and into
rhythm, a series of alternation.
The consonant variations. Build up and release movement in counter movement by meter. However, rhythm the consonant variations phenomenon. Rhythm is contributed by meter, in which a poem is likely to be read a general phenomenon influenced by these following things. Speed. You have the pauses, a poem is likely to be read expansion, speed, volume length, constant following modulation. Those ones the pauses, elision, speed of how expansion, volume length, constant clusters, modulation. Those ones determine the speed of how you're supposed to read. Now that you can come.
You can say, Dear Africa, let me give an example of a poem. To my mother continent, you raised my granny. Dear Africa, you raised my parents. You are raised my mother continent. The fertile soils you raised my granny. You raised my parents. Proud of raising me. That is like you listen into the pauses. Now someone can. Africa, my continent, I really love you. That is no, like it's narrating a poem. You listen into the pauses. Now someone can. Africa, my continent, I really love you. No, it's narrating a poem. Poems, but now we shall begin with pauses. We have pauses at in between or among high speeds. They are all within the lines. Now we shall begin with pauses. We have pauses at in between or among. Within the lines, which simply break the monotony, call the causera, and the metrical pattern. But usually it emphasizes particular within lines simply break the monotony. Their functions and the metrical pattern. But usually it emphasizes particular words or contrast within the line. Their functions vary. Pauses at the end of the line, as you know, can be a full stop. Can be like a break. Pauses at the end of the line, the two sentences can be a full stop. Sentences and can be like a break. Trying to relate the two sentences, one line, but the two sentences and broken lines and the two lines. Like the one is like one line, but you've broken them into the end. Elisions and expansions. There are times when unstressed syllables, which are normally pronounced, are not pronounced. Elisions and expansions. In order to make there are times when unstressed syllables most likely pronounced when two non-pronounced in the particular line in order to make the line fit the meter. Elisions most likely occur when two non